Looking around, I finally see I think I need a change. The rat race, I wanna flee, my world I'll rearrange. I'm getting back to the roots of how it's meant to be. Growing gardens, picking fruit, racing livestock, living free. It's a modern homestead. Build a modern homestead.
Good morning and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. I'm here with Jason White of Plans and Provisions Podcast, and we're going to interview him about how he got started and what his plans are for the future. And with that, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast.
Well, thanks, Rachel. It's really great to be here.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, you want to tell us where you're located? You don't have to give exact location, but just general area.
Yeah, of course. So I am in Southwest Missouri, nestled right in the middle of the Ozark Mountains. Not too far from Springfield, Missouri. So we've been here just over a year now.
Okay. And is your background in like farming, homesteading, is this new to both you and your wife?
So yes and no. I mean, so I grew up very conventionally in the suburbs, just kind of the average middle class consumer, suburban lifestyle. Once I turned about 20, in my early 20s, I started to realize I had a real interest in where things came from, especially food and beverage. So, for example, I think what really kicked it off was when I was about 22. I landed on the island of Maui with a backpack and like $300. And forgot my shoes, but that's another story. And ended up, and I had a phone number, so I ended up with an internship with this old local guy who taught me and my then, now ex-wife, how to process and roast coffee. So that was really my first experience.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. We lived in the back of this old building and ran a little fruit shop during the day and sold coffee and picked coffee a couple times a week. And it was just a really unusual, unexpected experience. And it really just set me off for a desire, to know how food and beverage is produced, but also the agricultural side was just, I was attracted to the production element, but also just the beauty of it.
I bet what a beautiful place to do something like that.
Oh yeah, totally spoiled. Definitely a blessing. In the end, along the way, I ended up meeting my wife because of my relationship with the coffee industry in Maui. She was born and raised out there, so she was still. she was a surfer girl and grew up on the island, but she was living off the grocery store, and it wasn't even until I met her in her late 20s. So she got into homesteading, or we didn't even know it was homesteading then, but into kind of farming and rural life once she met me. Okay.
Yeah. And so then that's in Hawaii, which is quite a ways from Missouri. How did you end up? Yeah. How did you end up landing in Missouri on a homestead?
Well, I would say the next step in the line would be I met the beautiful local surfer girl, and that was my dream. I loved Maui, and I'm like, all right, I'm here, I'm home, I'm going to live the rest of my life here. And then she said, hey, I've lived here for almost 30 years. If you want to stay with me, we're leaving. I got to get off this island. And so I said, okay. So we ended up in the Portland, Oregon area, in the Willamette Valley in general. I had some contacts over there and spend a little time. So over there, we started to just find ourselves drawn to farms. I had made a contact when we first got out to McMinnville, where we were for a few years and helped with a CSA and did a work trade there, and ended up living on a very rural property and doing some gardening, and started doing chickens and eventually ended up down in the Eugene area for several years, where I feel like we went to homesteading school. And again, at that time, I don't know if people were really using the word homesteading
Yeah.
that much then, but we ended up living with a couple who had kind of a hobby farm. We would call it a homestead now. They had about 7 acres. They had a dairy cow or two. They were raising some steers. They had, all the different poultry, way too much poultry. She had chickens just everywhere. And learned how to, make cheese and can and make jams and butter, and started slaughtering chickens and turkeys. And so we were there for about a year. And that was really what kind of cemented that lifestyle for us. And we realized that we just learned so much in that period of time. And so I think that, no, the background was not in homesteading or agriculture, but that's how the path kind of ended up playing out for us. Getting here, we stopped along in Arizona for about 6 years after we had our first kid. My family was in Arizona in the Phoenix area. And so we just needed to kind of make money, and we had family to help watch our kids. So we were there for 6 years, but the whole time, honestly, we were just so uncomfortable. I mean, we adjusted.
Right.
But we just knew that we were going to be there for a year or two, and then head off to Idaho was the dream for us. And we just kind of got into the rhythm of things. We started making money. That felt good. We had the family support. But we were never really satisfied with it. We always knew that we were not going to stay there. And we looked around all over the country. We looked extensively in northern Arizona. I took a trip up to check out North Idaho. I mean, we looked into any possible reasonable place that a modern homesteader would consider. And somehow I don't know how we ended up settling on Missouri. I know that at one point, maybe halfway through being in Arizona, something told me the Ozarks, just kind of one of those, the small voices. And I kind of forgot about that because we were so fixated on the Idaho area.
Right.
But once I went up there and realized, there's grizzly bears in the backyard. It's, 4 feet of snow every year. As we get older, are we going to want to be 60 and shoveling 4 feet of snow and slipping on ice? And we just kind of cooled to that. And one thing led to another. We had an opportunity to buy this property that we're on. So that was 21. We closed on the property in September and moved here December of 21. So we've been here about 13 months now.
Wow. And how many acres do you have?
We've got just under, we do. We've got just under 5 acres. So we've got about 3 acres of pasture, and then the balance is, kind of different areas around the property. So it's, it's a nice little spot.
5 acres is good.
I think it's plenty. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. It can wear, we have the 1/4 acre here, and I can tell you, it can wear you out. If you, do you have any animals now?
So we do. We got started within a week or two. We were so excited because we had just loved having chickens, and we had birds when our oldest daughter was, under 2. We left when she was 1.5 years from Oregon. We hadn't had chickens since. So I was pretty eager to show this girl and my twins. I've got younger twins. Let's get some chickens. So I picked up like 8 or 9 hens and a rooster within about 10 days of making landfall here at the property. We were ready. It had been a long time coming. And so luckily there was a really nice little chicken house and yard that was already here on the property. So, we've got that. We've grown. We've got, I don't know, probably 20, 25 laying hens. We've been whittling down our roost. Long story short, the chicken zone is a little crazy right now, but we've been slowly getting our roosters into the freezer, and we did some Cornish cross this last fall. And so we've been enjoying some fresh, juicy chicken. We did pick up in April, which was kind of it wasn't a compulsive move, but it did surprise my wife. I had been looking for bottle calves. And so we picked up a pair of brown Swiss bottle calves from a local dairy.
Oh, wow.
In April. And that was, that has been an experience. They've been a lot of fun, and they're easy, and we're just raising them for beef. But,
Right.
I'll never forget that drive. It was about 30 minutes away, and we don't have any stock trailers or really any kind of trucks or anything. I've got a older Honda SUV. And so I drove out there, and I put these two calves in the back of my Honda Pilot SUV. And I thought they'd just kind of lay down and just sit there and look out the window, and they didn't. And so,
oh boy.
Licking my ears, trying to get in the front seat. And if you've been in the Ozarks, there's really not many straight lines on the roads out here. So that was a trip that I'd never forget. And beyond that, we've got a small rabbitry that we've started. We've got a buck and 2 does of some New Zealand whites.
That's pretty cool.
So we got a pretty good start. I feel like, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So is your property flat or hilly? I'm going to assume a little bit hilly.
It's actually pretty flat. Our pasture does have a little bit of an incline. So because of the way that the land rolls, we've got 2 small ponds that, fill with,
nice.
So that's nice. But yeah, it's pretty flat. We're blessed to have a flat area where they've gardened for decades. And so we have a really nice garden area that's already been cleaned of rocks and is pretty fertile. So that's been nice as well.
That's really cool. It's nice to come in and already have that garden and chicken coop. That's
nice. And we've got the pasture was fenced, and we've got some sheds, and the garden. If you know anything about Ozark soil, it is really good at growing rocks. And so having those rocks already out of there was huge for us. So we bought the house because it has high-speed wired internet as well, which is kind of rare out here. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, and it allows me to work from home and do the things I do here. So that's kind of
you mentioned work. So you do work obviously off farm, then not maybe off farm, but you do work outside of your homestead at this point.
I do. Yeah. We're definitely, I would say probably the toughest thing. It's been a tough year. It's been a beautiful year. It's been a wonderful year, but the transition from, that easy money and convenience in the suburbs of a large metropolitan area to a place like this has been, it's been a challenge. And, I talk about that on my podcast. I'm fairly open about it. It's been hard, but we have slowly experimented with different things. And honestly, we've had to just change our expectations. Things that worked in the past are just not working the way that they did, in that environment. So there's I think that as much as we had identified with that rural lifestyle and that homestead lifestyle from our former experiences, 6 years living in a place like Phoenix, Arizona will change you. And you have to be adaptable. As humans, we are adaptable. And so we really kind of became those suburbanites that we kind of just we never felt comfortable, but we found, I think that being here, we've had to go through kind of a detox from that.
I can understand that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think we're detoxed. I think we're good. I think we figured it out, but I do work off-site. I leave part-time, and then I work from home part-time as well.
Okay. That's cool. Now, are you guys, you mentioned children. Do they play a part in homesteading? How does that work with having, I don't know how old they are, or, any of that?
So they do. So our oldest is 8 years old. We have 3 girls, an 8-year-old, and then we have twin 4-year-olds. We always promised our oldest a farm. That was the dream. We're living here now, but one day we're not just going to have this backyard full of rocks. We're going to have a farm. We're going to have a farm.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would say I referenced how tough the year has been, just finances and things like that. And we're on our feet, we're getting through it. But I would say one of the most beautiful things is seeing how the kids have really kind of blossomed forth once we got here, and just over the year, and just seeing them engaged with the natural world that we have here, with the rhythms of life and death. You know, my oldest is an absolute chicken nut now. I mean, she's 8 years old. She can tell you more about chickens than I probably could. She watches a lot of videos on them. She, you know, every time we get the hatchery catalogs in the mail, and she just loves those. I just hand them right over. I'm like, there you go. Seed catalogs. So yeah, she's involved, and her responsibility is growing as we see fit. You know, the twins, they're having a good time, but they're not exactly, you know, they're out there, they're having fun, but they're not quite to the point where they're doing too much. But to that question, I mean, we just started harvesting our first animals this last fall.
And that can be interesting to explain to children.
Absolutely. And I explained it, and she's like, oh yeah, cool. Okay, great. Oh yeah. Okay. Now, she was very engaged with a lot of these chickens, and we had to harvest a couple of roosters that she had helped raise that were not meat birds. They were just, we bought a barnyard mix and had way too many. And she's fine with it. Oh yeah, that's great. Oh, sounds good. Day of, she had some emotions. She definitely, it was hard for her, because it was something that, I mean, it was hard for me at 30 something when I first started doing it, you know? But now we've had several, you know, chicken slaughter days. And last week we had some friends out, and they'd never done it themselves. So we wanted to show them how to do it. And I just kind of, you know, when you have people around, you kind of step back and see things from a different viewpoint, and just seeing how natural and calm she was about it. And just, in the twins, they're fine with it. Yep. They get it, you know, and that's, as much as my wife and I love living rurally and love the homesteading life, that's why we're doing this. You know, it's so that they know how to feed themselves, and they're not squeamish about these things. Right. And, you know, that's why we do it. So yeah, they're definitely giving us good feedback in the way they've adjusted.
Right. Now, when I looked over at your website and your podcast, you said one of the subjects that you were interested in talking about on there was homeschooling. Do you homeschool your kids?
We do. Yeah, that's something that even before we really got engaged in the philosophy, I think, of homesteading, which we could probably get into a little, we always just kind of knew that we wanted to homeschool our kids, even before we were really convicted to do so. I think we just knew that. And so, yeah, we do. Yeah, well, my wife does. I mean, she does the school, you know, the reading, writing, and arithmetic. You know, I do more of the science stuff, history, things like that. Just kind of, I've found that with homeschooling, it seems like when you know that that's your responsibility, you're just kind of always teaching them.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's fun. Yeah, we enjoy it, and it's just been satisfying to see. Right now, the twins are learning to read. My oldest, you know, knowing that we taught her to read. We didn't outsource that to the state, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. But we definitely feel like for us, it goes hand in hand with homesteading, because it's right there with the philosophy of just taking power back from these centralized forces that are just kind of just looking to monetize your life and control your life for profit. And so it's, we love it.
It is I don't know how to describe that feeling when you look back at your children. Mine are all adults now, and you look back at them and you realize that you're the one that taught them to read and do math and all of that, and they're successful adults. It's it's rewarding. It's very humbling. But yeah, I don't know how to explain that feeling. But yeah,
So
'cause
you
we
homeschooled yours as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
we homeschooled our kids, K through 12. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
So they never saw a public school or an
No.
institutionalized school during that period. Wow.
No.
Great.
No. I homeschooled my cousin from the time she was 16 till she was 19. And she's, ours basically. And so she did see school.
Mhm.
She's the oldest of all the girls. We have 3 girls. And then our 2 youngest were K through 12. They never saw public school. Our oldest daughter went to college. Our youngest one is considering it. But yeah. I loved it. I'd do it again. All the sacrifice, and because it's a sacrifice, especially for us. It was a big sacrifice financially. But
no, that's a big part of that's a big part of our struggle. It's not just that we're homesteading. I mean, it's not just that we're rural. It's that we're taking on that, and it would be nice to have a break, but our convictions are strong, and we really believe in what we're doing, and it is rewarding. But it's I mean, it's definitely,
and it's not for everyone. But we loved it, and the kids loved it, and it just worked really well for us. But we ended up getting, between the homesteading and then the gardening and then the natural health, which I saw was something else that you wanted to talk about. Like, not that you wanted to talk about that, but that you talk about on your podcast, which is natural medicine and nutrition. That was kind of how we ended up in homesteading. Was my health had declined dramatically. Right. And I think how some people, quite a few actually, when you start talking to people about how they got there because either they were having health problems or they were trying to avoid having health problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the subjects that you cover on your podcast. So yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And that's something that, I referenced that homestead kind of school we went to, that property that we lived on with those folks. And the way that we had gotten into that was we had arrived in Eugene, and I was looking for work and opportunity, and I came across this herbal products intern. Whatever, I'll check it out. And so I ended up interning with this herbalist and kind of a community leader within kind of the Eugene's kind of a hippie kind of, leftist type of town and college town. And so, it was a lot of fun. I was probably an unlikely candidate, but I ended up being the first intern for this program and learned a ton. And I had already, I had geeked out on herbs and mushrooms and wild foods in my 20s. But that experience, not only did I learn a lot, but it also networked me into other opportunities, which, taught me more. And I think, I think natural medicine, it's just another component of that decentralization, and it's really important to us. And it's funny because we do a lot of things in our home that we've done, even when we were living in the suburbs or living in an apartment or whatever it might have been. We just kind of take them for granted. And it's hard sometimes to know what people don't know, what they need to hear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You forget where you've come from, and you forget what you didn't know. Right.
Exactly. And it's easy to take for granted what you have to offer. And I think, but yeah, the health aspect is really important for us, and it always drove our dietary choices. And one of the reasons that we were so motivated to want to grow our own food, for us, I think the motivation to really go into this lifestyle, one of them really came down to preparedness. I think that many people I tend to think that homesteaders, generally speaking, are kind of I hate the word prepper, but I feel like they're kind of truly activated preppers. They're living out living out a life of preparedness. They're taking back the power over their food, over their education, over their children, over their health. I mean, I think that's what homesteading really is about. And that's what's driven us in a lot of ways to make some of the sacrifices that we've made moving out here. And but yeah, I think that's what's driven us, health, preparedness, the love for the lifestyle, and just kind of having our children be able to be raised in this. Because I love my family and I love my upbringing, but man, I just felt so, as many are in this culture, just so unprepared to take care of themselves,
Well, and I felt, and I think a lot of people are starting to realize that they feel disconnected from the soil, from the earth. And I'm not even being woo-woo here or anything, but I do believe as humans, we have this connection to nature, and the fast-paced life that most live now. We're just so disconnected from that. And I see a lot of people craving that, even if it's not actually homesteading or farming, they're finding ways to get to the woods. They're, learning other skills, or their vacations are to the woods. So for us homesteaders, whatever you want to call us, we've just decided to make that our whole life because it makes us happy.
Yeah. And I think, no, it does. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people, the last couple of years, there's definitely been a lot of eye-opening developments. And I don't think that anything really has changed about the underlying circumstances of the world we live in. I just think that it's become more obvious to more people. And I honestly think that's a big reason why the homesteading movement is growing. And I know that, it definitely helped propel us forward. I mean, we could have stayed where we were and done well and not had certain challenges that we're facing now. But
same here. I think, we've been homesteading here for a while on our 1/4 acre, but the last few years, that's what kind of prompted us to buy the 20 acres and say, what are we waiting for? We've been talking about doing this for 15 years. Why don't we just do it now?
Yeah.
And we just did it. And it was terrifying. It still kind of is. It still kind of is. But yeah.
Not to mention the amount of work that I know you two are doing up there.
Yeah, a lot of work, and it's and we're not young anymore, and we don't have child labor, and but it's okay. We love it. We love it. So
well, and that will keep you healthy and keep you young and keep you moving forward. And
let's hope. Yeah. I love the whole natural medicine, and that's the thing too. I think with everybody's drawn to being outside, but also just that physical, that agrarian lifestyle, that physical labor. I think we're all, people go pay to go work out because they like how that makes you feel. And as homesteaders, we don't have to pay to work out, but
and that's something.
Life.
No, it's true. And I talk about kind of that 6-month hiatus that we took away from this kind of lifestyle. I didn't have to go to the gym. I didn't have to work out. I was hauling hay and moving hay around. I was building fences. I was hauling water. I was doing all of these things, and I was fit, and it was from work. And I always brag, well, I don't need to go to a gym because I work. And then I moved to that kind of sedentary life where, there's a gym on every corner and everything is just, you're all boxed in, and I just kind of fell into that. At first I didn't exercise. So I do this. Well, no, you don't. So I had to start actually being intentional about that. And it was tough for me because it just such a divergence from the identity that I identified with.
When you guys were more like in town, like when you were in Arizona and stuff, did you do any homesteading type things, or
That's a good question. Yeah. So we did. We would we carried a lot of the things that we learned and still did them. For example, some of the natural herbal remedies and things that we had grown to appreciate and rely upon. We started to we would can, we would garden. We didn't have any animals. That was probably about the extent of it. But we still kept a little bit of our, our toes in the water a little bit. Yeah. And I think it's really important for people who, because I don't know for sure, but I think for every one of us that's actively homesteading, I think that there's probably just tons of people who dream of that lifestyle. And I think that, you talk about your tagline is grow where you're planted. And I've talked a lot on my show about just the importance of getting started where you are and not waiting for that perfect.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure you and I, when you were on my show, we talked about the same thing. And I think it's so important that people start to engage with these natural, self-empowering, enjoyable practices wherever they are, whether it be in an apartment or living in the suburbs like we were. During 2020, we were stuck at home like many, and nothing was really going on. So we gardened like crazy, and we had a whole yard full of these massive wild sunflowers, and we grew tons of food. And, we learned a fair amount from that experience. And I just think it's so important.
And you were doing that in Arizona.
Correct.
Okay. Because I've been through Phoenix and it looks pretty dry. So it's interesting to hear you say.
So yeah, it is dry. It's irrigated from the Colorado River, and admittedly, we had success because we used a lot of that municipal water. But
that's a very drastically different growing area than where you're at now. So you've grown in several different, like, what is the word I'm looking for? You've just grown in very different climates, like from Oregon down to Arizona and then Missouri.
Yeah. And then of course, Hawaii as well. So,
and Hawaii too. So those are some pretty drastically different grow zones and soils and climates. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely say the easiest was Hawaii. I mean, you could put anything in the ground and it will get water. And if it doesn't water it, it'll grow. Arizona, you can grow year round. The summer is actually the winter there because it gets so blazingly hot that
we don't want
you have to do things to protect your plants. And, but I've been around a little bit. I've slowed down quite a bit, and I hope to spend the rest of my life here in the Ozarks. So,
do you guys have a community that you have kind of inserted yourself into with like some other homesteaders or farmers or I don't know, markets? Do you guys have farmers markets and stuff like that there that are real active? I don't know how big the town is by where you're at.
Yeah, so we do. We have we're near a small town of about 3,000. And there is a seasonal farmers market there that's pretty active. And there's several in kind of the larger area, the Springfield area. We haven't really gotten super involved there. I would say that one of the things I think community is vitally important. It's something that my wife and I talk quite a bit about. It's something that, coming from that suburban life, people tend to keep to themselves. They benefit from the proximity and the economy of scale and everything of having all those people around, but they tend to keep to themselves. And it was very uncomfortable for us, but we adapted to that. So it's been an adjustment moving here. But we found a homeschooling co-op on Facebook that we've made some really good friends with and continue to network through that. But we're actually, I think one of the things that, and I've encountered this a little bit over the last few years, I think that when people are looking for a group or a community, they're looking for one that someone else started. And we've been looking around our area, which a lot of homesteaders are moving to this area. I know that for a fact. And there isn't really, that I've found, an active homesteading community here. And so we're actually in the process of starting that.
Good
we're
for
just
you.
going to, it's something that we're all a little bit apprehensive to put our necks out there and do something like that. But it's something that has been on our mind, and we're finally getting that going. So we're starting a Facebook group, and just for our area, in the surrounding, and then planning on doing a monthly meetup. And I think community is it's just so important, not only when you are homesteading, but when you move to a new location, it's really important. But yeah, that's something that we're working on.
So what are your goals this year for 2023 for your farm and other things? And then do you have some long-term goals that you have set? Like, where do you imagine yourself, and, where do you imagine your farm going?
Yeah. So I think we have, we've just put our first year in, and we did quite a bit, and I'm pretty grateful for everything that has, we haven't had any major failures. We've had some, but our long-term goal, as far as we can see it, is we want to raise sheep here. We want to raise lamb. And, I just really done a lot of reading. I just feel convicted that sheep and lamb production is the future of small scale meat production, localized meat production. And, I won't get into all the reasons why unless you want to know, but we're not ready for that. And it was something that, when we first got here, we'll have sheep this year. Well, being here and slowly just kind of letting things fall into place and, getting over the excitement of being here, we've realized, this is a long-term vision. And so we want to slowly work towards this. Homesteading is a journey, right? We all talk about the homestead journey. So I want to make sure that we're enjoying the journey and that we're not burning ourselves out too fast. I'm pretty sure it's Joel Salatin that said I believe in Polyface Micro, that the average homestead lifespan is 6 years. So I don't want to be that statistic. I don't want to be that statistic, and I want to see other people, have success. I just think it's so important that, we look at the long term. So this year, one of my main goals is, we're going to garden again. Last year we tilled 4,000 square feet. We planted about 3/4 of that. Okay. We had gardened, but we're not expert gardeners. We bit off way more than we could chew. And, but it was successful. It was successful in the fact that we grew a lot of food. It didn't really meet the expectations that we had, but we knew that if we don't jump in, and we probably didn't need to plant as much as we did, but that, we learned so much. And if, anybody that wants to kind of hear about that, I do a monthly update on what we're doing here on the homestead. And during the spring, summer, fall, I definitely chronicled kind of the different challenges that we faced and what we were learning. So this next year, I'm looking forward to probably planting half or less, probably less, 40% of what we planted, having more control, getting some drip irrigation to have a better irrigation plan. And we're going vertical with some things like cucumbers. We're going to move our winter squash and stuff to different corners of the property where they don't really need to be tended as much, because they're pretty low maintenance and they take up a lot of space. So definitely looking forward to just continuing to learn to garden. Hopefully having success with our rabbit breeding. We've had we had some pretty significant failures on that at the end of last year.
Okay.
And another thing is, we were talking a little bit before we started recording just about chickens and feed and the sustainability of feeding chickens or really anything. Looking at the amount of hay that we've had to invest in for this winter for our animals and all these things. So homestead level feed sustainability is something that I'm really, really interested in. I can definitely thank you for your interview that you did last month, I believe, with Nick Ferguson. And
he's so knowledgeable.
Oh, I took away so much from that one conversation, and I've been geeking out and telling other people about it. I've become kind of the proponent of these fodder trees, and I'd heard you mention hay trees in the past.
Yeah, I have several. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what is that? And so then, that talk definitely set me going. So definitely planning on getting the hybrid poplar, white mulberry hybrid willow and starting to plant those. And then the goal is to start to propagate them. And my hopes are to be able to, through the community that I develop here and beyond, to kind of be a evangelist for that and get people to plant them and hopefully help to have an impact on our local food sustainability and our local food economy. So those are, and we're also looking at breeding chickens. We've got a couple breeds we like here, and we want to start finding creative ways to monetize those birds. So they're not just, we're not just paying $8 a dozen for eggs or whatever it is.
I was just going to say you could sell eggs and design.
Yeah, and we have. I've sold some at work, and one of the things too, to answer your question, that is a big goal for me that I've started off well is I'm going to keep meticulous records this year.
That's been one of my goals too. It is so much harder than you think it would be.
I know. And I'm a record guy. I'm a note guy. I know how important it is. And then we let a whole year go by on this homestead and we didn't keep track of our feed bill, for example.
I know. I don't understand why I do that to myself.
Right. So that's a goal. We're keeping track of that just so we have the data. So we know, okay, this is where we are. I'd rather know where we are than think like, hey, it was okay. I want to know exactly where we are so we can make adjustments to it. So those are the big goals. I mean, we would love to get sheep this year, but I really, really need to replace our perimeter fence. And I don't see that happening this year. So we're just going to, see what happens. Maybe next year we'll get to that. Again, I think it's so important that new homesteaders, and I hear this from a lot of people that are advanced, don't bite off too much, don't take on too much. I probably, knowing what I know now, would not have started rabbits last year.
Okay.
Not the end of the world, but, I think that it's important that we master something, maybe one or two things, and then build on that. I imagine if you add one process or animal or system that works with the other systems on your homestead, and you do that once a year, where are you going to be in 10 years? Just kind of that, go out and chop the tree 5 times a day and eventually you'll cut the tree down kind of thing. But yeah, that's my goal for this year. And I think they're tangible. I think they're attainable. And I'm excited to see where we're going to be at this time next year and what we're going to be talking about for the next year. That now it's starting to feel like a journey, which, at first it was just, we're here. Okay. It was just kind of a weird year of like, all right, we're doing this. And now it's feeling like we're doing something.
So you said something about, getting sheep, and you kind of had this vision. Is that a really long conversation or something you want to?
No, I don't think so. On? I mean, I'm certainly no expert, and I've never raised sheep. I've never helped anybody raise sheep, but I have interviewed some very smart people who do that. I've read, some books, watched a lot of videos. My feelings on sheep is the pros are they're manageable, they're small. If we're in a situation where the custom meat processors are, which has been the case lately, either overbooked or unavailable due to whatever market force or situation. I mean, we had to book our beef slaughter out a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's we I'm glad we knew to do that, or else we would be in a weird position this fall. But so I just think that as far as management, being able to harvest yourself, the fact that they, from conception to sellable or harvestable product it's and I'm not super fresh on my numbers, but it's very short.
Right.
I think it's about 9 months compared to,
a beef is a lot longer.
Yeah, it's 18 to 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're looking at quicker turnaround. Last check, which has been a few months, the live weight prices are typically lately have been double for sheep than beef.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean
recently I went and helped harvest some steers at a friend's farm. And, it's just so valid what you're saying, because not only do you have to have large equipment to process these, you have to have somewhere to put that. That's a lot of storage of something that you have to have.
Exactly.
And then, like you said, it takes longer. These were all grass-fed steers, but it took us, I can't remember how many there was of us, probably 8, 10. Probably 3 of the people there were pretty skilled doing it. The rest of us were helping. And it was 2 really long days. And it was 2 very long, very cold days. And when you're doing this on a homestead, you have to have cold weather or a walk-in cooler, which most homesteads don't have. So what you're saying is just really valid. I mean, that smaller animal is certainly more homestead friendly if you're going to process on homestead. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, even once you're done processing, well, now how many freezers do you have?
Right.
And we're not planning on not raising beef.
Right.
I really like the idea of having multi-species because of parasite management. They really help with each other's parasites, put chickens on the back end. So, as a kind of a new student of the regenerative agriculture movement, that's the dream.
Yeah. And beef tastes really good. I like beef.
Yeah, I love beef.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up eating lamb, but I do like lamb, and it will be an adjustment, as it is for most Americans, because it's just not that common of a protein. But yeah, so that's kind of the feeling about it. And they're ruminants. They also eat plants that beef animals don't like. They don't just eat grass. They'll eat the broadleaves. They'll eat the thorny stuff. So they're really good for the pasture. And
have you done any research on speaking back to like fodder or hay trees? Have you done any research on which ones work better for sheep?
Well, I mean, my understanding, not really. I think what I'm going to do is I want to plant all 3 of the top 3 fodder trees, see what does well here.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go crazy with it, but, start with a fairly decent planting and then just expand based on what seems to work the best. But I do need to look into that more and see kind of what makes the most sense. But
I haven't looked either. Have you? And then another question is, do you guys get snow that stays down there, or is it an option for you to have grass most of the year?
Yeah. So last year, I think, was fairly unusual. And we had several close to a foot accumulations over the winter. So we'll see how this year is. Typically it's not a major factor. And so, again, I didn't kind of mention the rotationally grazing aspect of what I'd like to do, which is still above me. I've read books, I've watched videos, I've talked to people, but until you get started, but ideally I would love to be able to have a nice stockpile for the winter and tree hay in the barn. And I mean, that's the vision, because one of the reasons that I started my podcast, one of the reasons I started this homestead really comes down to just a lack of trust in our ability to be provided for by the corporate system. It's clearly failing, and even if it's able to provide, it may decide that it doesn't want to provide for some, and it may want to provide for others. So so that's really the driver behind wanting to do sheep. I think a lot of the people that surround this area are doing beef because they're easy. I can tell you, I've got 2 beef animals out there, and raising them and weaning them in a couple of moments when they were very young were a little bit intense. But other than that, I mean, they couldn't be any easier. You'd think it'd be the other way around, but
you would think, yeah. We have to have this conversation though, because we have to think about what the next 5 years, what the next 10 years look like, and we can't kill ourselves being homesteaders either by working ourselves to death. So we have to learn to work with not just nature, but with what our property is suited to, what our area is suited to. And it sounds like you're putting all of that into thought. And that's something I have ruminated on since, for a while, but then ruminated on even more since we bought our new homestead. And, that's what permaculture tells us to do, is to, to sit back and observe and think about these things. So I think that's a really good conversation. It's not just that, I would like a cow, but does my property suit a cow? Yeah, I would like this, but does my property suit it? Because you're just going to be working against that constantly to make it happen. So
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's it. And I think, ruminating. I mean, I spend so much time thinking, since we've been here, thinking through and so I know that sheep are not going to happen right away because I've thought it through and gone in circles and looked at all these different things, So somebody said in a book I read recently, I don't know if it was Alan Nation or Greg Judy or Wendell Berry, but it's probably one of the 3. And they said something along the lines of farmer's thought is the farmer's most valuable asset. And having systems in place, and that's why ruminants are great. They go out and they do all the work. They're converting sunshine into meat. They're doing that work for you. Your job is to think and strategize and to, like you said, figure out, what is this land going to support and what is it not going to support, so that I'm not taking these massive steps and wasting all these resources, time, energy, money, and heartache going up a hill that's never really going to be sustainable for me. So I think that's really important. It's just whenever my advice to anybody that's new to homesteading, just it's okay. Think in circles, read, study, draw out maps, geek out for a little while, observe your property, look at what other people are doing in your area as well. Look for those resources, see what people are having success with, and give it time and let it roll. And I can say that now because I'm at this point where, like I said, I feel like I'm doing something now. It's not just like, oh, am I legitimate because I have XYZ animals and plants? It's like, no, I'm on a process, and this is my process. This is my family. This is my, the property that I've been, able to work with. And so, it's definitely a trip. We're enjoying ourselves for sure.
I like how you refer to it as a journey, because it certainly is a journey. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that you've been at it for a while.
Yeah. Well, mostly the gardening and learning everything except for animals. I mean, we've had chickens in the past, and my husband did grow up on a homestead. He grew up on a small farm and kind of like a hobby farm, but they had a lot going on there. But yeah, I mean, I still have so much to learn. I'm so far from being an expert on so many things, but it is definitely a journey. And so now that we're wrapping that up, do you want to talk to people about, where they can find you and your podcast and all of that jazz?
Yeah, thank you. So I started a podcast not long after we got here. It was in the works for about a year before that, and I started it in March of 2021. It's called Plans and Provisions. It's a homesteading podcast. And so I wanted to start pretty much right away when we got here on the property. And, I almost started it beforehand, but I thought, I really just kind of want to be able to document my experience, my family's experience on a new homestead. And like we talk about that homestead journey, I wanted to share that journey with other people who might benefit from that. So I so far have interviewed tons of really, really great people. I've met some wonderful people, and I've asked questions that I have as a new homesteader. We've talked about anything from fermentation to herbal medicine to foraging, rabbitry, raising rabbits. I've spoken with some just your average homesteaders and talked about their experiences as well. I do a monthly update where I just kind of tell you what's going on and share some of the things that we've been dealing with, some of the ups, some of the downs, some of my thoughts on that. And going into this new year, I'm starting to taking a break in January, but in February, I'll be back to it. Starting to do some more solo shows, just talk about different topics that I think are important and that need to be talked about in the homesteading community. And so you can find me really anywhere you can find a podcast. It's called Plans and Provisions. Social media, I'm really only active on Instagram. That's at Plans and Provisions.
Okay.
Got a website. You could probably guess what the website is, plansandprovisions.com. And it's fun. I'm having a great time. Got some great things coming down the pike. So love to have more people show up and listen.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your last podcast with Judson Carroll.
Yeah,
that was
a good one.
That was pretty fascinating.
Yeah,
I took tons of notes. I ended up having to rewind it and take some notes so I could go find his stuff. And
Judson is I met him through an online homesteading community. He's one of the smartest guys I know, and we just have a ton in common with music and things. And that was a fun conversation. And I was
pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm glad you enjoyed that one.
Well, I'm going to thank you for coming on and taking the time to do that. And I can't wait to hear more and listen to you as you talk more about your journey on your podcast.
Well, thanks, Rachel. I really enjoyed talking with you, and we'll have to get back together and talk again in the future.
Okay. Well, I can figure that out in a minute. Well, thanks. This is cool. I really did. I kind of geeked out on his podcast. I was like, I need to find all this guy's books, and
I know
it's really cool. He had lots of information. That was cool.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was I just enjoyed that. I've gotten to where I used to go in with rigid notes and I had scripted questions, and now it's I've got a loose outline. I'm like, let's just talk.
I just kind of wrote a few things down here too, because I realized that I want, especially with somebody like that with so much knowledge, you just kind of want to let them. Yeah, they want to keep going on a subject. You just kind of let them go because
absolutely
they have so much to offer, and they're so excited about it.
Yeah, no, you guys should have him on. I don't know if you've had a herbal
we
medicine.
haven't. We should. He was it him that he was talking about ferns?
Mm-hmm.
And I found that fascinating because our new property is the wildest property. I've never been on a piece of property that was so small, that was so diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, at the back, we have this swampier area with these huge 150-year-old white pines. And then towards the front, it's more deciduous trees. But at the back, we have those huge ostrich ferns. And he mentioned ostrich ferns. Yeah. And it was the first time I had ever heard anybody actually talk about ostrich ferns, because I live here, and it was the first time I had actually ever seen them.
Wow. Have you ever had fiddleheads? I didn't even
know we had them here.
So you've probably never had fiddleheads?
We ate the regular fiddle. So there's several different kinds of ferns. The fiddleheads that we typically eat are the ones that come up on one stalk and then branch out. The ostrich ferns come up from the ground and they're huge. And we didn't realize there was so many different kinds of ferns till we owned this property, and we have at least 4 different kinds of ferns. And we have like salamanders running all over, and we've learned that means that the property is really healthy.
Oh, good.
Because they absorb through their skin and they die if they don't have healthy, if there's like contaminants and stuff
toxins.
Like that. So, yeah. But it was when he mentioned the ferns, I was like, oh, I need to go find him and find his information. But I think he didn't quite have that out yet. But
yeah, I know the book's available. It's just judsoncarroll.com.
I'm actually on your website clicking on it right now going, oh, cool. I forgot about this and I need to go back over there. Yeah.
You guys should really have him on. He's a very easy guest to have. He's very engaging and he knows his stuff. That's for sure.
That's the interesting thing too, is it's one of Harold and I's goals is to learn more about, herbalism, wildcrafting, just all of that. And I found it interesting. I can't remember now. Now I might have to go listen to it again. We was talking about with the kombucha, how he uses kombucha.
Oh, as a starter for fermenting.
Yeah. I've done a lot of fermenting and I've never used kombucha for that. So
I hadn't either. Yeah, I hadn't either. And I use like my other brines from other things. But I had never done that. So I have like a gallon or 2 of really nice kombucha vinegar that, it's kombucha that it just wasn't, it already was gone.
I have a gallon of it right now and I'm like, what do I do with this? And I did find out that you can use it. It's like 1 cup to 10 cups, or maybe it's 1 cup to a gallon. I'd have to look it up again. You can use it in your garden. So,
interesting.
Well, I could use it there. I
didn't realize that. I've been making salad dressings out of it. Been doing a little kombucha vinaigrette. It's been fantastic. So I'm like, all right, well, this is essentially free and I don't have to use the apple cider vinegar I have to bring in.
Yeah, we have apple cider vinegar that I made from our apple trees. And I just have so much vinegar because I made 2 gallons of apple cider vinegar and then I have this kombucha vinegar and I'm like, what am I going to do with all this vinegar?
We do an infusion, just garlic and different herbs and stuff. And I take a shot of it every day. So we get through vinegar. We probably go through about 10. Cider. Kind of, sort of. Just I do whatever's on hand. But we go through probably 10 gallons a year of apple cider.
I have to take thyroid medicine. So I actually drink apple cider vinegar before I take my thyroid medicine because it helps with absorption. Yeah.
Interesting.
Strange. I know. But I take a naturally desiccated thyroid. It was I had to fight my doctor on that one.
What's the alternative to that?
Synthetic.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and I didn't want a synthetic one, so mine's.
So it's actually
pig thyroid gland.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you can get bovine too, but because of my celiac being so bad, I had read a few studies where when people took like apple cider vinegar or lemon water before they took medications or even vitamins, they actually absorbed them better. So I don't know if it was that or the changes in my diet, but I was able to cut my thyroid, the medicine that I am taking, in half. So I'm like, anytime I can get rid of, I wish I didn't have to take it, but I'm not there yet. Maybe someday, but not there yet.
At least you have the resource and it keeps you healthy.
Yeah. And I mean, that was one of the reasons I went to that steer class was the farmer. She invited me because her and I were going to try to find the thyroid on the cow. It was like a little expedition there. So,
Any luck?
We didn't. It was so cold. And the day that we ended up, so what happened was we butchered. What happened was we culled one that day, but 2 more had already been hanging for like 4 weeks because we didn't want to cut them up without them being hanging long enough. So we only had the one to work with to actually find the thyroid because the other ones were already in quarters.
Right.
it was, it was like 15 degrees with like 50-mile-an-hour. It was so cold.
Yeah.
I had on 2 layers of Carhartts and long underwear, and everybody was frozen. So we didn't end up spending as much time doing that as we had hoped. One of the bad things about doing it as homesteaders, we were doing it outside because who has a building big enough to put your tractor bucket way up with a big cow on it?
Yeah. I do think that sheep are the future. If decentralization and the energy situation kind of changes, and I just think that sheep are, I heard somewhere years ago that prior to like 1950, and I haven't looked into this and I've been meaning to, that lamb was actually one of the number one proteins consumed in America.
That, something about that doesn't surprise me. So my husband is the baby of older parents. They ate a lot of lamb growing up, and his parents would have been like his dad served in Korea, the Korean War. And
okay.
And so he was born, I think it was 1931.
Like around 30.
Yeah. 1931 or something like that. So, and he was raised on a farm in New York, and they ate tons. My husband grew up eating tons of it. And I think it was just like more chosen. And then I don't know why it came out of favor. Because it's easier to CAFO a cow, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, my cynicism says it's because it's too sustainable and too manageable and independent. And so let's do chicken, which is 100%, or at least 80% reliant on imported energy. And let's do beef, which is pretty hard to do if you don't have all of those resources.
Well, you need a huge piece of property to do beef. Fairly huge. I mean, you're not going to do it in your suburban backyard, but yeah.
No. And
that's the whole thing. And I think this energy thing, I mean, it's ridiculous. This whole energy thing, now they want to outlaw gas ovens. And it's just, I feel like that's just going to get worse and worse. And I think that we have to stay ahead of it by being smart, by, like you said, just planning ahead and having sheep instead of cows, because it's going to be, unless you have 8 kids home to help you do stuff like this.
Yeah. Well, and even then,
I don't think things are going to get easy anytime in the near future. I think we're going to find more and more struggles, and we're going to have to be more and more resilient and self-sustainable and all those things.
Yeah. And I mean, I used to have a pretty negative outlook, and I'm starting to, I'm kind of shutting out some of those sources of information that just send me on the same programming of fear. But also I think we have to be, we're at a massive paradigm shift. Multiple paradigms are kind of overlapping and changing. So it's up to people like us. And even on a small level, I think it makes a huge difference, because that's the local is where it's going to make a difference. And I think we have to be thinking in terms of how do we create a solution before the problem even hits? We can see the problem is there. It's a storm cloud, and we've maybe gotten some wind and some lightning and some rain, but
and they have the neon lights on it. They're always telling us.
Right. But that storm will pass at some point.
Yeah.
And what is it going to be like on the other side of that? And, food is the most important
hopeful,
component.
Honestly. I see more people wanting this. I'm pretty hopeful.
And that's so important.
I think it's going to get rough for a while, but I think it's hopeful. Yeah,
I think so. And I think if we take the negative programming and we feel like, well, there's no point, well, then they've won. And we are.
I think that's exactly their goal.
That's it. And I think that, there's alternative media and there's all these different, I think most of it's all coming from the same place, and it's all part of the psychological operation to just keep us from taking care of ourselves.
We stopped watching any form of news, right, left, whatever. We figure if it's really, really big, we'll find out about it.
Yeah.
And we just started focusing on like what we need to do. What book do we need to read? What video do we need to watch? Who do we need to talk to? We just get so much more time. We only have so much time, and we're trying to spend that wisely. And we found that we did that probably like 3 or 4 months back, and we're not lacking any information. It's all the same stuff. It's just rewash over and over anyways from what we found. And we're happier and we're getting so much done.
Mm-hmm.
And none of that was changing. Like, it wasn't doing anything for us. It wasn't because we knew this. It made our lives better. So.
Yeah. And I think for me, it would alter, maybe it would just knock me off balance, and keep me from just staying like one foot in front of the other. And so, we're doing the same thing, and it's been pretty good, just focusing on what, I've got enough of my own problems, and nothing on the news is going to change what I'm going to do. Now, if I was wondering whether I should move out to the country or raise my own food, it might be different, but I've done what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm out here, I'm doing my life. I've got my vision. I feel like God's planted all this in my heart and given me the opportunity and has a plan. So I'm going to continue that,
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Well, I'm excited to see what happens for you guys in the next year. Lots of stuff will probably be happening here in the next year too. So it'll be interesting to swap stories. And
do you have any vision?
I better start lifting weights, because I have a feeling I have an awful lot of fence poles to up.
Yeah. Because you have nothing out there right now, right?
There is nothing.
Plants and trees and stuff.
We have temporary fencing around the orchard, which came down when we got 2.5 feet of wet snow. Well, that podcast isn't out yet. I think that podcast goes out tomorrow. The one where I talk about, so last weekend we secured 160 poles from an orchard.
Oh, cool.
Fence posts from an orchard. And I said to my husband, I don't know why I'm so excited about buying work, but I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
But I better start doing something, this motion.
Right.
Better start.
Yeah. Just get it some weight and just keep doing that.
I guess.
Even just that. I mean,
because that's a lot of poles. But I mean, we got more than we know what we're going to do with, but we do need defense.
Are they T-posts?
No, they're big.
Oh, so you got to dig holes, huh?
Yes.
You don't have a tractor out there, do you?
We do have a tractor, but it does not have a drill or anything on it. It's a very small tractor. So
you could probably rent an auger that you could throw in the back.
We might be able to, if our tractor isn't too small. I was trying to remember what it is. It's a small diesel John Deere. It's not huge by any means. Most people would buy it to mow their lawn, but it's bigger than that.
Yeah,
we moved a bunch of logs with it.
It's a lawn tractor, basically.
I think it's a 99225 or something. I don't know. My husband would know right off the top of his head.
Right. Yeah.
That's his baby, but we'll figure it out. We'll get it in, but that's a big thing. And then, for me, the same thing with the fodder trees to keep that going. And
that's so huge. That just sent off a light bulb for me. Our first goal is to get our rabbits totally independent of the feed store, which is easy because they don't really eat that much food.
Yeah,
I mean, for what we have, but we can replace that 100%. And then, my goal is to not have to buy hay next year. Next year might be pushing it, but
right.
At some point.
I'm tossing, or what I'm kicking around right now is if I want to go through the hassle of planting black locust in rows so I can coppice it and maintain it with rows wide enough I can mow to kind of keep it contained, just because the wood stove, the BTUs alone for black, for it, and then coppicing it in smaller pieces, and then fence posts, continued need for fence posts. And because the fence posts we have are from an orchard, they're cut off, so they're not super long. They're 5 to 6 feet. They're not super huge.
Yeah. Right.
But so I'm tossing around that tree, but I'm just continuing. Now I'm growing out my fruit tree guilds because I planted a bunch of fruit trees. So now I'm working on the guilds and fencing this summer and building an outdoor kitchen out there.
Nice.
So
very nice. Yeah, we haven't planted one fruit tree yet, and I'm glad we haven't. But that's a goal too this year, is just to start slowly building out some little food forests. And I'm more excited about these fodder trees than I am about fruit trees, but I'll get a few in the ground for sure.
Well, I have pig property. I really do. Like, I have a good friend that has, he raises Mangalitsa hogs. I don't know if I'll do complete Mangalitsa, but our property's kind of like this, and there's woods here and there. And so we wanted to do like run pigs through the woods and stuff. And that was kind of why I got a bunch of apples, because they can feed the pigs. And then we have oaks.
Nice.
So the pigs can eat the acorns. And so we kind of have the four-legged four-wheel drive property.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, that's like you said, use what makes sense. And I believe Nick Ferguson said that you could replace pig feed up to 90% with these fodder trees.
I know.
That blew my mind.
The apples and the oak trees and the fodder trees, I was like, so our friends that have them, they don't buy feed. He hates pig feed. And he grows like daikon or mangels or whatever, and the pigs actually go harvest them themselves.
Right.
And he grows rye, and the pigs go in and eat the rye, and the pigs go in and do that themselves. And he just kind of, whatever he can find, anything he can find, he feeds these pigs.
Is he on YouTube?
Yeah, Mark Baker.
Mark Baker. Yeah, Baker's Acres. I've heard you mention him a bunch of times. I feel like I've seen a video of him doing exactly that.
He's a little bit controversial in some subjects, but I tell you, the guy knows how to raise amazing tasting pigs. And he does all that. And I'm like, so I've known for a while that this property was really good for pigs. Now, for a while, I have no desire to keep goats for a long time, but we may have temporary goat property to help clear out some blackberries. And then the goats move somewhere else, because I have no desire to try to contain goats.
And it's funny because after chickens, that seems to be the go-to for people who are new to homesteading. They think, oh, I want goats. And I'm like, why in the world would you want goats?
Yeah. My husband loves them because he grew up with them, but he's like, yeah, they're kind of the devil. No,
they're fun and they're cute. And they're even tasty, but they're horrible to raise. I mean, they're just...
they get into everything. They chew everything up. They can climb anything. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what he said. He's like, oh yeah, they're cute. They taste good. They good milk, but they're handful.
Yeah. That's why I think sheep are the, and to the point of sheep manageability on a homestead. I mean, that's why I think pork has been I've thought about so pervasive.
If I got sheep, I would want hair sheep. I don't want to deal with shearing.
Oh yeah. 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 No, most people are doing hair sheep these days.
It's just so much easier than the shearing.
And Greg Judy is not far from me. I tried last year. To see if I can get some animals, and his wife politely declined just because I didn't have a big enough of an order. But there's enough people around here that have his sheep that eventually I want to get some of his. I think so. The problem there, it depends on who you ask. On one hand, they're very parasite resistant, but those St. Croix are very small bodied versus a Dorper is like the Angus, they say, of the sheep world. And
Justin has the LaCroix, right?
Justin does, I think, have, he got his from Greg Judy. Yep.
That's what I thought.
In fact,
I'm really behind on watching some of his stuff because I just haven't had time to sit and watch. But
I haven't watched in quite a while. I've been so busy, but he's got Greg Judy's, and they're very parasite resistant. But the Dorper just makes a bigger carcass. So it's a question of, am I looking at a commercial product, or I just want something that's going to be a sustainable, food source? So there's still things.
It feels like there's a lot to weigh, but I should let you go. You have another meeting, and I probably have people running around my house somewhere.
Awesome.
So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been really good. I enjoyed talking with you. All right.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again, Jason, for coming on the podcast. You can find his information in the show notes. And don't forget, homesteading can be done anywhere. So grow where you're planted.
Looking around around, I finally see I think I need a change. The rat race, I wanna flee, my world I'll rearrange. I'm getting back to the roots of how it's meant to be. Growing gardens, picking fruit, racing livestock, living free. It's a modern homestead. Build a modern homestead. A lot of folks don't understand why I wanna live this way. They've never eaten from their land like we do here every day. Snapping beans like Grandma did, sitting on her front porch. Hunting and fishing like a kid once you've done all of your chores. It's a modern homestead. Build a modern homestead. Country or city, there's a way to make this change. You gotta start today.